Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Genexus webinar. Today we have Turn Low Code into High ROI by Rodrigo Mendez. Before we launch into the webinar, I want to let you all know that we have a new Genexus version out. Last week we released Genexus 17, full of new features. So we encourage you to drop by our site and see everything that we've launched last week. Also, we are increasing the number of reviews out there in the sites, in specialized sites about Genexus. So we encourage you to go to sites just like G2, Capterra, Trust Radios, Gartner, and leave us Genexus reviews there. You'll help increase the Genexus community. So today we have a webinar with Rodrigo. Rodrigo is pre-sales advisor to the Genexus commercial team. He's also a technical evangelist for Genexus for SAP systems, providing technical support for the successful adoption of Genexus technologies in the SAP ecosystem. Without further ado, I present to you Rodrigo Mendez.
Thank you, Jaime, and thank you all for joining us today in this webinar. In this special edition, we'll be addressing how to turn low code into high ROI. Okay, here we can have a glance at two new concepts, one being low code and the other being ROI, and we'll explain later on these concepts in order to understand how to turn low code into high ROI using Genexus. Okay, as Jaime said, my name is Rodrigo Mendez, and I work in the commercial area in Genexus. So first, let's begin by addressing the concept of low-code platform, okay? And to do so, we have to understand that low-code platforms usually have a certain set of features, okay, that define these development platforms as low-code, okay? Which are those special characteristics or features that a low-code platform has? Well, let's start by saying that a low-code platform has a graphic user interface development. Okay, it's strongly based on visual aspects in order to help the developer to create the application. Okay, it leaves behind the writing of code, okay, to a lesser degree, and it aids the development through different panels where you can drag and drop different objects in abstract designers, and you can type in different attributes in a very easy to adopt way, okay, for the development of the application. When you're developing in a low-code platform through this graphic user interface, what you are doing behind in the platform is you're defining a model, okay? Hence, these applications are called model-driven, okay? The developer starts to create through all the tools that it has accessible on the development platform, this model that will later on be the backbone, okay, or the main source for building the software, okay? This model, through different code generators, will be able to generate the software in different languages or using different sorts of technologies, okay? In low-code platforms that have a wide variety of code generators, it's very common to hear that these low-code platforms are capable of creating multi-platform software, okay? From that unique model that has been developed using different code generators, you'll be able to create web applications and native mobile applications as well, okay? Hence the multi-platform. And last but not least, all of the low-code platforms are fairly easy to adopt for developers that have some level of technical knowledge regarding programming and modeling, okay? Are platforms that are designed to simplify the work that a developer has to do in order to get results, okay? We'll see that these 5 things or these 5 features give some advantages at the moment that we decide to start creating software using low-code platforms. Okay, which are those advantages or benefits? First of all, as the name suggests, the amount of coding is less. Okay, the developer spends more time focusing on the design and defining the logic than actually coding, okay, using a syntax that sometimes might be very difficult to understand or time consuming, okay. Hence, the developer, when working with a low code, will spend lesser time typing and coding and caring about the syntax of the code, okay, which will impact directly on the time that the developer spends, okay, working in order to create an application and to provide results to the customer. Therefore, the cost of having that programmer creating value, okay, in the software will be lower when we use a low code platform, okay, for the development. Another important thing is that the fast delivery that low-code platforms allow, okay, the shorten in the time of value delivered to our customer will allow us to embrace different agile methodologies, okay, and to approach agile development, okay. We will be able to rapidly deliver results to our customer and to have feedback, okay, from the customer end in order to improve once again our application and keep that cycle going as many times as we need, okay, to keep iterating with our customer in order to improve the product and improve the user experience that that product provides to the end user, okay. And in order to sum this up, we can say that the main benefit of the low-code platforms is that they provide a higher productivity, okay, compared to traditional schemes of programming, okay. The time to market that low-code platforms have is way higher than traditional coding platforms, okay. You'll be able to deliver way faster product and value to the end user. Okay, so after seeing both the concept and the benefit, it's important to address what the market thinks, okay, of low-code platform in the near future, okay. Gartner, for example, says that 4 years from now, low-code application platforms will be responsible for more than 65% of all application development activity, okay, meaning that within 4 years, most of the software in the market, running in the market, will be created by low-code platform, okay? And in the other hand, we have Forrester that takes a more economical look at the low-code platform and states that within 2 years, the low-code market share will represent $21 billion, okay? That's a big piece of a market, and it will be very interesting for a lot of companies and software houses that would like to take a cut into it, okay? So having talked about the low code, okay, the concept of the low code, I would like to address now the other concept that we saw at the beginning of this webinar, which is the concept of ROI, okay? Most of you may know what this concept means, but for those who don't, let me explain to you briefly. ROI stands for return on investment, okay? And it's easily calculated with this formula, okay? The ROI, what the ROI measures is how efficient an investment is given the returns or the profit that that investment has, okay, on a given period of time, okay? So how do I measure the efficiency of that investment? How do I calculate ROI? Well, I take the revenue, meaning the revenue given by that investment in a period of time, and from that revenue I subtract the investment, and then I divide once again through the investment to get the percentage of the return on said investment. Okay, let's take a look at a quick example in order to get the concept more solidly. Okay, so we have the formula at the top, and in this case we'll consider an investment of 200 with a revenue of 600. Okay, so we substitute the values. Okay, and here we have that for an investment of 200 that eventually gave us a revenue of 600, we have a revenue return on investment, sorry, of 200. Okay, doing some quick math, we get to return on investment to be 200. What does this 200% means? That we acquire 2 times what we invested, okay, after covering the cost of the initial investment. Okay, as we can see here, in this case the revenue or the ROI, it's a positive one, being any number above 100 a positive one. Okay, if the number is below 100%, that means that we just got to cover, okay, the investment that we did, and we double it. Okay, so how efficient can an investment be? We have to consider 3 main factors, okay, in order to have a better idea on how to measure efficiency on an investment. Okay, which are those 3 factors? Well, first of all is the investment itself, okay, what is known as the capital expenditures in the companies. Okay, how much do we have to invest initially to get what we want? In this case, how much we should invest in order to get a low-code development platform. Okay, the initial investment. Here, in order to achieve efficiency in this investment, we have to aim to minimize the amount of the initial investment. Okay, the smaller the initial investment will be, the more chances we'll have to increase ROI in later time. Okay, another thing that we obviously have to keep in mind is the revenue that we aim to achieve with this investment. Okay, and we sure have to try to aim to maximize it. Okay, having to minimize the initial investment and at the same time maximize the revenue will create a wider gap, okay, for us to get a higher ROI. Okay, the widest being the difference, the higher will be the ROI. If the difference between the initial investment and the revenue is tighter, okay, it's closer one to the other, the ROI will be smaller. Okay, and one other key aspect that might be hidden in these 2 that we should really take care in order to get a high ROI from our investment are the expenses. Okay, the expenses, or what is known as operational expenditures in the companies, are the costs that we have to that we're accountable for after making an investment. Okay, most of the time, for example, we can take it to the example of buying a car, right? Buying a car, when we buy the car, we know that we have to make an initial investment of certain number, okay, or of certain quantity of capital. But we need to consider as well the expenses that maintaining and having that car for a period of time will have for us. Okay, it's the same way for investing in software development platforms. Okay, the expenses through the period of the inversion or the investment should be taken in account as well, and are as important as the investment in itself and as the projected revenue. Okay. So in this case, when choosing a local platform, what do we have to take in consideration in order to maximize ROI? Well, here we have two different markets, okay, for customers of software development platforms, okay. On one hand, we have the software houses, okay, a business that whose intention is to build software and to sell that software, okay. And on the other hand, we have companies that have an IT team, okay, and they purchase a development platform in order for the IT team to use and to develop software that will be used internally in the company, okay. In the case of the software houses, it might be easier to measure or to project the revenue, okay, of any given project. For example, I would like to create a product that will be a mobile application that will be sold to a certain number of people, okay, at a certain price, okay. So there I can make wild estimates that will allow me, okay, to understand the revenue that I would like to aim for, okay. In the case of the companies, it's not as easy to measure the revenue of the internal software development because it's not very it's not measurable in the sense that someone will purchase that software, okay. That software will be used by other employees in the company, okay. So the revenue in the cases of having a platform to develop internal applications is not easy to measure, okay. How do we measure if an internal software was useful for our company, okay. It's not a question of only numbers and prices as it would be in the case of the software house, okay. So the safest approach in order to maximize ROI when choosing a local platform is to have all of the information by advance regarding the investment that we need to, the initial investment that we need to take care of, okay, and all of the expenses that we may incur in any given point in the future, okay. The revenue, it's at the other hand, might be more easier or more difficult to calculate, okay, but we can get a clear idea on the initial investment and on the expenses that will incur in the future, okay. So in order to take care of the initial investment and for the expenses that may occur, here from Genexus we want to share with you what we have seen in the market in order to help you understand the different offers that are for low-code platforms, okay? For you to be able to understand clearly the investment that you need to make and how you'll incur in additional expenses through time, okay? From Genexus, we noted that in the market there are three main types of licensing models, okay? In some cases, for some products, these licensings can be a mixture of these three types, okay? But it's important to address each type by its own and to understand the advantages and the disadvantages of each, okay? First off, we have the end-user-based licensing model, okay? The end-user-based licensing model is a licensing model that will charge, okay, the buyer of the software platform based on the amount of end users that the development or the software created with the development platform has, okay? For example, I purchase a development platform and I create a mobile app that it's used by 1,000 people, okay? There I will have to pay a fixed price based on that 1,000 people using my application. But if, for example, within 2 months or 3 months, instead of having 1,000 people using the application, I have 3,000 people using the application, I will have to pay more, okay, based on that change in my on the amount of end users that my application have, okay? This is a very popular licensing model, okay, that measures the size of the solutions created based on the amount of end users, okay? And the company that develops the software needs to pay in order of the amount of users behind the application, okay, of the amount of end users behind the application created, okay. Now we have the object-based application, the object-based licensing model. Applications created in low-code platforms are a sum of different objects, okay. Most of the low-code platforms are object-oriented, okay, platforms, and many of the platforms nowadays have in their licensing models regarding the size of the project, okay. So there are cases in which you will have to pay based on the amount of objects that your project has, okay. For example, if I have a personal management system that has 150 objects, I will have to pay certain fee. But if that system grows or changes, okay, and now I have, instead of 150, I have 200 objects, I will have to pay another fee, okay. That is what the object-based licensing model aims towards, okay. And finally, we have the developer-based licensing model, which focus on addressing to the developers themselves, okay. So for example, if the IT team in my company, we have a team of 5 developers, and the 5 of us will be developing the application. We'll need 5 licenses, one each, okay. Therefore, we'll need to purchase 5 licenses, one for developer, and then we will be able to each of us develop and to collaborate in the same project, okay, and work towards the creation of the system, okay. If it's a new member comes to a team, we'll need a license for him to work, so we'll need to purchase another license, okay. So having talked about these 3 different type of licensing models, we'll see how these licensing models may impact on our decision, okay, regarding our initial investment and the expenses that we may have to incur, okay, throughout our project, okay. We have to do this. It's important for us to think, okay, to the future and consider the scenario where our software grows, okay, the scalability scenario, and what happens with each of these licensing models, okay. In this case, let's start by the end user based licensing model. In this case, I would incur in an initial investment, okay, in order to get my hands on the platform, and after I start developing and the software I created starts getting more users, I will have to pay more, okay, due to the licensing model, okay. So in this case, the growth of my software, okay, will be determined, okay, by the end users of that software, okay. Therefore, as my software grows, also grows the end users, and therefore I have to pay more. So every time my software grows in the user group or the user base, the cost or the expenses, okay, after that initial investment also grows, okay. So I have those limitations, and therefore we classified this licensing model, okay, in the far left with the lower ROI, okay? Because it clearly has a restraint on the growth of my software, okay? I won't be able to, with initial investment, okay, to grow the software user base without having to incur in additional expenses, okay? In the middle, okay, in the more balanced, we have the object-based licensing model, okay. And why is it in the middle? Because it is not as aggressive for our expenses as the end user based, but nonetheless we'll have to incur in additional expenses every time that our software or our system needs to be modified or expanded, okay? We won't be depending on the amount of users that our application has, but every time that our project changes, the licensing model will change and we'll have to incur in additional expenses, okay? And at the far right, we have the developer-based license scheme, which is classified as the scheme with the higher ROI, okay? Because it's the less aggressive for our initial investment, okay? As the example that I mentioned before, we have a fixed amount of developers, okay, that will be able to create software without constraints on the size of the software, nor on the amount of end users that that software may have eventually, okay? So our growth won't be limited, our revenue won't be limited on the size of our projects, nor on the amount of the end users behind those applications, okay? We will only need to incur in additional expenses when our development team grows and we need further licenses in order for those new developers to work on, okay? That is the reason why the developer-based licensing scheme is the one that we consider that has the higher ROI between all of the licensing models that are nowadays in the market, okay? In this case, Genexus uses that licensing model, the developer-based licensing model, okay, that, as I mentioned before, it has two main advantages on the investment and on the expenses, okay? First of all, we'll be able to have a tighter grip, okay, and a budget control on both of the capital expenditures as well as on the operational expenditures, okay? And concerning the growth of the software itself, we'll be able to scale without limits, okay? The size of our software won't mind to us because we are on a developer-based license scheme. We won't have to pay for any additional objects created, okay? And we won't have to worry about the amount of users of our applications, okay? Our growth won't be limited by that as well, okay? Therefore, in this case, Genexus licensing model is one of the highest or biggest advantages, okay? Allowing the higher ROI and putting our company among the top choosing for different software houses and different companies that need a low-code development platform due to the flexibility that this developer-based licensing model has, okay? So, having addressed the licensing model, okay, and having given you a wider look on the different options that you'll find out in the market regarding low-code platform and licensing, I would like to address now another important aspect regarding the technological freedom, okay, that you should consider as well in order for you to have when choosing a low-code platform, okay? And for that, I want to address something that it's very trendy nowadays, and it's also it's a bit of the fashion as well, which is a lot of software as a service local platforms that there are available today that may provide or seem to give a lot of advantages, but on the other side, they count with a important set of disadvantages that you should be conscious, okay, about them, okay, before taking the decision, so you don't have any surprises after you took the decision to go that way for your software development in a local platform, okay. What are those advantages that we're talking about regarding software as a service local platform? Well, these platforms usually have a variety of services that are in the platform that will allow you to solve a lot of things, okay, in the development of your solution, okay. It's presented as an end-to-end solution where you'll be able not only to code but to integrate that code with different services, okay, and all of that is ready to go, okay. It's just to create usually an account and you'll have the environment already installed and set for you, okay. This is very appealing for a lot of companies that are looking for quick solutions, okay, but it's very important to keep in mind that it has some downsides as well, okay. What are those downsides? It's that most of the time those SAS, software as a service, sorry, local platforms, okay, come with severe technology constraints. And by severe technology constraints, I mean that, for example, you may have access to a software as a service platform, but that platform will only allow you to create code in certain technology, okay. You will only be able to create software, for example, that runs on Java or only .NET, or you will be using the database that the platform provides for you, okay. So you won't be as independent as you might want to be, okay. You rely a lot on what the platforms this platform allows you to do, okay. Sometimes all of this variety of services that a platform may have are not included in the basic offering, okay, and there might have some hidden cost, okay, behind complex cost models that will give you a bad surprise, okay, when you find out that in order to do what you want to do, you need to pay more or to pay additionally, okay. So sometimes the cost models are not very clear at once, and that it's very important to keep in mind when going or moving toward one of these SAS local platforms, okay. And last but not least, as well as something to put an eye on, is the exit cost of these software platforms, okay. There might be a very appealing way to create software, but if you need to move out of them, you might be facing high cost that might go from having to migrate your data to another database management system, okay, or to rewrite most of the applications that you created, okay. Sometimes these platforms as well use their own platform and don't allow you to access directly to the code that you created using the platform. Therefore, you are captive of the platform itself, okay. So the exit cost in that scenario will be even higher, okay. So some things to keep in mind regarding going to SAS local platforms. And in this case, our view from Genexus is to be technology agnostics, okay, to give the freedom to our developers for them to choose what technologies they want to use, okay, and for them to be able to create different environments and to swap between them without having to lose all the knowledge that they define in Genexus. Okay. For what it's known as mobile or aiming to mobile development, the technologies we work with are Java for Android, okay, Swift for iOS, and we have the web technologies, okay, as HTML5, CSS3, and the newly added framework for Angular, generator for the Angular framework, okay. For the creation of web applications and all of the backend logic of our applications, we can either choose from Java, going to .NET, or even the newest .NET Core. Okay, all the web design, okay, the client and web design will always be responsive. Okay, Genexus creates responsive web applications by default. Okay, in which you'll have the HTML5 technology to define. Genexus will be defining through this technology all of the content of the web application. We'll be putting the style to the elements and to the controls using CSS3, and we'll be adding all of the programming on the user end through JavaScript. Okay. As well as I mentioned, in the mobile, we can also create applications using the newly generator for the Angular framework. Okay, so we'll be able to create single page applications as well. Okay. In the case of the databases, Genexus will create, okay, all the required physical structures in the different databases that you're seeing here. Okay, and Genexus will give the developer the freedom to choose where that database is located. The developer may want to work with a database that is on-premise, and he also may want to work with a database that is in a cloud service, okay? And through Genexus, he will be able to define where he wants to keep the data of the application created. As well as for the code and for the DBMS, we support different providers of artificial intelligence, giving once again the freedom for our developers to choose, okay, the AI service that they need the most, okay, and that they take the most advantage of, okay, and to integrate it in their software building process. And finally, for the deployment in Genexus, we give also a wide variety of deployment environments in which the developers will be able to deploy these applications to different cloud providers, okay, or perhaps using containers such as Docker, will be able to deploy the application and get it ready to be tested by the end user and for it to be used through the cloud, okay? And all of these options in Genexus give the possibility for the development team to decide whether they want to take an on-premise approach for their systems or they want to go full cloud, okay, having both the application and the database in the cloud, or maybe they can even take a hybrid approach, having the application running on the cloud, but the database safe on-premise, okay, kept on-premise. So, having addressed both of the licensing model, the licensing schemes that are in the market, and having addressed also as well some of the considerations regarding the technology that it's behind the low code, I would like to approach to the present day and to understand a bit the meaning as well for this webinar, okay, which is to address how we can, using low code, aim for a high ROI, but putting it to the present day or to the present year, which has been a very special year for every one of us due to the global pandemic. We can observe somehow that a lot of things have changed, okay, and Having that in the context of the companies, we can see that companies that weren't prepared for this now have an urgent need for digital transformation. Okay, a lot of companies had to adapt a lot of their processes in order to continue operations in this present scenario. Okay, and therefore a lot of companies that weren't ready had to take on projects with top priority, okay, in order to continue operations. What did this urgent need for digital transformation required? That a lot of projects had a fast delivery, okay, to finish up a lot of projects that had maybe a lot of time frame, or deliveries plans that were for maybe the next year had to be done in this year, okay, in order to carry on with all of the processes that the company needs to have, okay, in order to function. This is one side of the aspect, the need to change and to change fast, okay, due to the situation, to adapt, okay, because we need to change fast in order to continue in activity, okay. That is the side of the urgency, okay. But we have the other side of this year, which is the side of the safety as well, okay. That's why it's a bit maybe a contradiction, but we need to find a point in between, okay, in order to carry on. This urgency, okay, to create fast projects and to deliver them fast, okay, in order to digitally transform our companies requires of investment, okay, and to put extra effort and extra time and extra people, okay. But truth be told, this year also brought a lot of things, okay, economically speaking, a lot of things occurred, economically speaking, that caused crisis in a lot of companies. For example, the tourism, okay, a lot of companies that had whose business was tourism, okay, had their revenue reduced to basically zero in most of the cases, and that created some sort of domino effect in the economy, in which a lot of companies are not certain of what is going to happen within the 3 or 4 upcoming months, and therefore this uncertainty, okay, of what is going to happen makes the company take a very good care on how the money will be spent, okay. So a lot of companies are having a tighter budget control, okay, in order to cover for the uncertainty that this year brought us with all of these changes. But on the other hand, this uncertainty and this budget control can't prevent companies from taking on certain projects of digital transformation in order to adapt, okay. So here is the contradiction that I wanted to mention with the present situation, okay. But it's not only important, okay, to consider for an investment the present time, but also what will come tomorrow, okay. It's important for us to look into the future on what we are spending our money on, okay. And there's no better way to look into the future than take a quick glance into the past. And in this case, we can take a look at Genexus past, in which Genexus has been providing solutions, okay, for more than 30 years now to different customers all over the world. And Genexus was as well providing those customers, okay, through the Genexus solution, the possibility for them to adapt and to evolve their software through time, okay, going from older technologies such as the green screens that ran RPG and COBOL, okay, through the first websites, okay, that were made in Java, to the first web applications and also the first mobile applications created, when later on the integration between ecosystem started to appear in the market. Here, Genexus took on projects such as integration with SAP system, the new upcoming and evolution of the code for creating iOS applications, which changed from Objective-C to Swift. Genexus also brought that in order to allow their customers to maintain and evolve their software and to adapt to the upcoming changes. Okay, and coming to the present, Genexus keeps updating the technologies that provides to our end users through our solution. Okay, now we have the last few years we have added the .NET generator. Now we are working towards adding different web frameworks, in which we have started with Angular, and we provide to our customers the certainty, that they will be able to maintain and to adapt the software, protecting the investment that they once made, and this is very important to keep in mind. What I would like to, in order to reinforce aspects of the present that I talked about and aspects of the future that I also just talked about, I would like to give two examples of high-ROI success stories with Genexus, and we'll have two examples. One that was initially made considering a short-term project, and one that was made initially considering a long-term project, For the investment made considering a short-time project, we have the example and the success story of Panama Canal, Panama Canal, as you may know, is the company that runs the canal that connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, allowing the passage of different vessels that move merchandise from one part of the world to another, and in this case, Panama Canal needed to create applications in order to contemplate different workflows of the company and needed to transform digitally, In order to do so, these workflows would have to be modeled and carried on by a different set of systems, in which, as a side effect of substituting manual activities, the Panama Canal would also have a saving in the amount of paper that they would use, for the operations, in Panama Canal. Panama Canal originally had a plan, a 3 years period in which to develop these applications and in which to execute their digital transformation process, Evaluating different options for platform, they went for Genexus, and within 15 months of work with 7 developers, they got to create 11 applications in order to support the transformation, the digital transformation of their company, creating, for example, applications in order to pre-inspect the vessels, For example, if a vessel wanted to cross from one ocean to the other through the Panama Canal, would have to request the crossing, and before the permission was issued to that vessel, a team would have to inspect the vessel, They boarded the vessel and they inspected it, and they filled different reports, through native mobile applications for their iPads or their mobile phones, in which they they fill, okay, the inspection, and they send the inspection back to the offices in order for it to be processed and to be studied if the vessel applied for a permission to cross. Okay, that is one of the applications that the Panama Canal team created with Genexus within 15 months of work. Okay, here we can see that having 7 developers due to the licensing model implied 7 licenses disregarding of how many applications were developed using Genexus, nor how many end users those applications would have. Okay, so Panama Canal still uses Genexus to this day, and with that 7 licenses, it's probably that they will keep to develop different solutions using Genexus without having to pay extra. Okay, that is the example for the short-term project, which had a high ROI thanks to Genexus. Okay, for the long-term project that has a high ROI, with Genexus, we have the Bantotal success case. Bantotal is an Uruguayan company that built a banking core, okay, a banking core product using Genexus, and this banking core product is being used by different world-class banks such as Sabadell, Scotiabank, BBVA, JP Morgan, and HSBC. Okay, this banking core is entirely made in Genexus, has been in the market for 26 years now. Okay, so Bantotal was able to create a banking core product, okay, which is an important product. I mean, mission critical application, okay, that was created 26 years ago. So Bantotal was able to evolve and to maintain their product thanks to all of the technologies in which Genexus has updated itself, okay, in order to provide the certainty that we talked about to their end customer, the certainty that your knowledge will remain and will be evolvable and maintainable through time, no matter the different technological changes. Okay, so nowadays the product of Bantotal has a total of 120 developers working, okay, which have created more than 36,000 programs, and more than these programs have more than 5,000 tables. Okay, in total there are more than 5 million lines of code that were generated by Genexus. Here we can see, okay, an example of a product that has scaled enormously. Okay, here we have 120 developers working that created a product that grew over time. Okay, and their customers as well grew over time. Okay, so thanks to the licensing model, okay, the developer-based licensing model that Genexus has, makes possible, okay, to create software, okay, and to evolve it through time, having the possibility to take advantage on having the higher return on the investment. Okay, so having talked about these 2 success stories, one for the short term and one for the long term, I would like to point out what we talked today regarding Genexus, okay, and the Genexus advantages for the investment and for the possibilities of having a higher return on investment when deciding to go for Genexus. Okay, first of all, due to the easy licensing model that we have, which is developer based, okay, we will have more visibility and more possibility to project on our initial investment and on our expenses, okay? Therefore, we'll have more budget control, okay, in order to have more information, okay, regarding the investment that we will have. Secondly, we'll have scalability without limits, okay? We'll be able to scale up our project, okay, disregarding for the amount of end users or for the size of the software that we have created. The only thing that we need to worry about is for the developers, okay? Third, regarding technology, we're technology agnostic, okay? So companies that use Genexus to develop will have the possibility of choosing the technology in which they will work, okay, for the coding, as well as for the database, as well as for the services that you're using and you're integrating to, okay? It's very important to mention as well that Genexus creates open code, okay, meaning that it's code that is usable through other development environments, okay, therefore lowering tremendously the exit cost of Genexus, okay. Due to the better productivity, okay, that Genexus has compared to other ways of programming, we can shorten those cycles between the delivery of value of the first prototype of our project to the customer, and we'll be able to process and to take more advantage of the feedback provided by the customer or the end user in order for us to iterate faster, okay, and achieve better time to market, okay, for the software than our competition. And the most important of them all is that Genexus is future-proof. Genexus will allow us to evolve and maintain the software that we have created through time, okay, without having to incur in additional expenses, because all the knowledge that we have put into a Genexus project will carry on through time, okay? And all of these 5 things that I mentioned are things that contribute to having a higher ROI when making an investment on a low-code platform. If you want to discover how, you can schedule a demo in which we'll address how quickly you can create an application, okay, a multi-experience application that both delivers for web as well as for mobile natively, okay? Well, this is it for now. We'll be surely having more webinars up ahead.
Well, everyone, thank you very much for attending this webinar. As you know, this has been recorded, so you can relive it in the Genexus webinar site and also on YouTube. Always drop by our webinar site to relive those you have missed and to register for the upcoming ones. Rodrigo, thank you a lot for an excellent presentation.
Thank you very much, Jaime, and thank you all for assisting to this webinar. See you soon.
Bye.